Hey guys, this week we are discussing hotel horror stories, Circus, a bad event at MGM National Harbor, and so much more, so stick around.
Welcome to the Crap Vegas podcast.
Vegas, here we come.
Vegas!
Here are your hosts, Chris and Josh.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode number 46 of the Crap Vegas podcast. I am Chris, he is Josh. Josh, what's going on out there?
It is cold as we go to weather talk. It is cold here in the greater Pacific Northwest area. We were down in the teens, which we don't get down in the teens very often, like 11 and 12 degrees. So it's chilly.
It's damn cold here. It's affecting the show. We went to connect and my internet is out because it's so damn frozen here. It's been in and out the past couple days and doesn't seem to be getting any better. But Josh, you say the teens. I would be happy to get to the teens right now, the way things are going. We're waking up with wind chills like negative 15, negative 20, and it's pretty miserable.
That is just crazy. I mean, I kind of, living in the bubble of the Pacific Northwest, I never thought Kentucky got that cold.
There are things east of the Mississippi that exist out here.
I know.
At least in my area, it's pretty darn cold.
You all just talk funny. That's all I know.
I know. Have you been watching the videos of them like shoveling off all the snow out of Buffalo Stadium for tonight's game?
In fact, that game is going on as we're recording. That game is going on.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it kicked off about a half an hour ago, my time, looking at it. So, just pretty crazy to see.
Yeah, it sure is. They had to postpone it because the snow was so bad.
So I'm doing this today on a mobile hotspot as opposed to my normal, amazingly strong internet connection. So for the first time in forever, people can blame me if there's an issue when it's almost always Josh's fault.
I'm not sure it's the first time in forever, but,
Yes, it is. For the first time in forever. Just like Frozen on Disney. First time in forever, it's me.
Yes, if Chris sounds a little different or if we lose connection at some point or the audio gets a little shaky, it's all Chris's fault.
Well, a good audio engineer like Josh would be able to overcome that and make me sound amazing and piece it all together, right?
I was going to say, I'll try and fix it in post.
I appreciate that. Okay, if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us via email. That's podcast@crapvegas.com. You can reach us on Facebook. That's crapvegas.com/Facebook. You can leave us a voicemail, crapvegas.com/voicemail. And the easiest way is always going to be on Twitter.
X.
Good. @VegasDuffy. I'm @SmallWhale13, where the show page is @CrapVegas. Okay, Josh, previous episode feedback. On the last episode, we had a discussion about strip versus off-strip properties, and we got a lot of feedback from our listeners about pros and cons that they felt should be mentioned. Some of it overlaps with what we said last time. Some of it's new, so I thought we'd run through a couple comments. So I think most of this would be predicated by a message we got from a person named Shannon. I don't know if it's a he or she, because that could be either way.
Could be.
I don't want to take any guesses. But Shannon left us some pros and cons of the strip and of downtown. I thought we'd just walk through and see if we agree.
Go for it.
For pros of the strip, Shannon said, no place like the Vegas Strip in the world. Well, that's a good start. I agree with that.
Can't argue with that. Yeah, that's the reason we're here.
Yeah, exactly. Many free attractions like the fountains, conservatories, etc.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I hope that, as we said before, I hope that those things don't go away because one of the best things about the strip is the idea that you get to see a lot of that stuff for free.
I agree. He or she said, best restaurants in the world. You'll never go hungry. I definitely agree with that one. There are plenty of perfect options for everybody.
So, Chris, that reminds me, did you happen, I don't know this for a fact, but I think it was Vegas Polly C on TikTok said that the Stratosphere, the restaurant, the steakhouse at the top of the Stratosphere that rotates, whatever the name of that one is, makes the most money of any restaurant in Vegas.
Interesting. I don't know how anybody would know that, but interesting.
I don't know either. But the kind of what led me to that is, do you think the Stratosphere is on the strip? Where does that go on your strip? This is the big debate about where the Vegas Strip ends and starts. But is it the Strat?
No, I don't buy into that whole Stratosphere is on the strip. I mean, is it on Las Vegas Boulevard?
Yeah,
yes, it is. But is it part of the real strip? No, I almost consider it more downtown than I do the strip.
It's our whole discussion of whether or not the Pinball Hall of Fame is on the strip or not. It's kind of the same idea at the other end.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. The last thing Shannon said for pros of the strip, that it has the top shows in the world. And that doesn't get talked about as much, but it really is the case. Whether it's music or magic or comedy or whatever it is, Vegas has the best of everything.
Yeah, and really, I would say I mean, I could get second guessed, or taken to task by our audience, but I would almost say that Shannon's right. Anywhere in the world. I mean, New York, you get Broadway and you get, big shows that come to Madison Square Garden and so on. But Vegas, you have all these things almost every night.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference. I mean, shows are dark on some days, but pretty much Wednesday through Sunday, there are 50 amazing world-class shows available.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm with Sharon on that.
I can't disagree. Here were the cons of the Strip, and I have a little bit of response to one of them, but other than that, I pretty much agree. Shannon said that it's more expensive across the board, which is what you mentioned last episode.
Yep.
Table limits, of course, much higher. Can't find anything really less than 15. There are some exceptions to that. Excalibur will have a $10 game every once in a while. The old Bally's, now Horseshoe, has a $10 game every once in a while. Treasure Island has a lot of $5, $10 games. I was talking to listener Zach the other day about how even Treasure Island, Josh, has like $1 stadium 3-2 blackjack.
Oh, wow. That's
so
cheap.
just really, yeah, you can't do much better than that.
Right.
But anyways, continuing on. This is the one that I take the most umbrage with. The person said slots have a lower payback on the Strip than downtown or off the Strip. And that gets repeated so much. But if you ever look at gaming reports, it's just not true.
Yeah, I remember hearing that kind of growing up with the idea that, the payback downtown is so much better. And I agree, the stats don't show that.
Yes, I pulled the most recent Nevada Gaming Control Board monthly revenue report just to see where things are right now. For the month of November, when I pulled that report, the Strip has a hold of 8.25% on its slots, all denominations combined. Downtown Las Vegas had a hold of 9.27%. So the Strip was a full percentage point less. So to say that downtown is a better place to play slots, at least for the month of November and almost any other month that I looked at when I quickly glanced, that's just not the case. Now, all of Clark County, if you combined all the properties, the hold was 7.74. So that tells me that a lot of off-strip properties have a much better payback for the players, and that's probably definitely where you want to go. But downtown is not the answer. Pros of downtown properties. Easy walking distance between properties.
Yep.
Can't disagree with that.
We mentioned that.
The Fremont Street Experience canopy. Boy, there's nothing that is more divisive than that, is there?
There really isn't. And I don't know. I don't think of that. I'm not as against it as some people, but I also don't think of it as a big pro. I mean, I guess it is. You can stay shady.
Yeah, the screens everybody wants to talk about, I find them horribly annoying. I much preferred downtown when the canopy didn't exist. I think it just killed the sight lines, and it really did turn it into a circus with all those buskers on the main path there. I'm not a big fan of the canopy. I wish it would go away. If it was on my list, I would consider it a con, not a pro.
That's your thing to get rid of. We need to do a show on things to get rid of in Vegas.
Yeah, we talked about what they need to bring back.
Right.
We need to talk about what to get rid of.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that would be number one on my list at least.
All right.
Last thing for pros of downtown, cheaper food and hotel rooms, which, yes, I agree with that 100%.
Yep.
But downtown cons, noise level on Fremont Street Experience. We didn't talk about that. It is extremely loud. It can be extremely annoying. But more importantly, if you're staying in a room that's anywhere near it, it can be difficult to get some sleep.
It sure can. I remember when I had my room at Plaza that I didn't sleep in, but it was there. And I could hear the music from the Fremont Street Experience, and I could hear Stadium Swim and all that. Yeah, it's very difficult. If you don't get a room that's well padded or insulated, you're going to have trouble.
And we did talk on the last episode about how the clientele that visits off-strip properties, locals properties, how they're a little different than what you get on the Strip, obviously. But downtown clientele is different than Strip clientele as well.
For sure. And again, not meaning to say that one is better than the other. They're just different.
Oh, yeah. There's something for everybody in Las Vegas, and that's definitely the case with casinos downtown versus the Strip.
So thank you, Shannon. I said Sharon earlier. I meant Shannon, so I wanted to correct myself. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't even hear that. So
that's okay.
Maybe she goes by Sharon. Maybe Shannon's nickname Sharon. Who knows?
Anyway, thank you very much. Her questions, Chris, came from our Facebook group. So that was spurred some good interaction on the groups. We appreciate that a lot.
Absolutely. Okay, Josh, main topic time. Hotel horror stories. If you have stayed at a Vegas hotel property, you've undoubtedly experienced some type of problem with your room at some point, even at those higher level properties that Josh and I love to take part in. I know Josh and I typically ignore the little things, but for bigger things, we do judge properties by how they respond once they know about the issues. So I thought we would go to some of the responses we got and share it with the listeners. So we asked the listeners, what are some noteworthy Vegas hotel problems that you've had, and how did the property try to make it right? And the first response that we want to talk about was from Jason. Jason said, this was years ago, but I was staying at Aria. At this point, Aria was offering turn-down service in all rooms, but you actually had to request it from housekeeping. Being a fan of chocolates they left, and just enjoying coming into a room that was set up for being ready to go to bed, I called down and asked for it, as I had done in previous days. And then I ended up over at the Mirage to do some playing. At Mirage, I ate their burger place and asked to charge it back to my room, and the bartender went to process it, but they weren't able to find my room in the system under my name. Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good to start.
Yeah, that's not good.
I was a bit confused, but chalked it up to a system error, paid up, and went on my way. After a few more hours of being around the strip, I went back to my room to find housekeeping and a manager in front of my room. I was confused and asked what was going on. They replied they were removing the previous guest's items from the room. I clued into what was going on and told them that I was the one staying in the room. They realized there had been some sort of mix-up, that I had been checked out incorrectly, and called down to the front desk. I also talked to the front desk to get new keys and decided to determine what was going on in the morning. But when he went down in the morning to talk to the front desk, and they confirmed everything that had happened, they didn't offer him anything. They had actually already charged his credit card for the full stay since they thought he left. They offered no explanation, no sort of apology, no compensation. This experience led him not to stay at Aria for many years, and he vowed to never return.
Well, I think I would have the same reaction.
I mean,
can you imagine?
I've never been well, I shouldn't say I've never been accidentally checked out of a room before. There's been times where I've theoretically been staying at a property, but wasn't actually staying at a property.
Right.
And when they showed up and I didn't have anything there and there was nothing going on with the bed,
I know what you're saying.
They did check me out. I won't specify anything more than that. I don't think that's necessary. But if I was actually actively in a trip with my stuff in the room and I came back to find them removing it, I would think either A, I'm getting trespassed from the property. What did they catch me doing?
Right.
Or B, something is really wrong and I would be demanding compensation.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, the closest thing I can think of that happened to me was it was either at Bellagio or at Wynn. I can't remember. I think it might have been Bellagio, but I had requested a late checkout. And, as we sometimes do, and when you play, if you have a host and your play is sufficient, a lot of times they'll give you whatever, if you want a 4 p.m. checkout, they're happy to give that to you because they know you're going to go back and play. So I had requested a late checkout. My bags are pretty much packed up and ready to go. And I went down to the casino floor to play for a couple more hours. I came back and the housekeepers are in my room servicing my room. And I had the do not disturb sign on and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the closest that I've gotten. I was kind of pissed off about it, honestly. It's like, why are you in here? I had do not disturb on. I requested a late checkout. What are you even doing in here?
Get out of my room.
But
geez, yeah, that would be very frustrating.
But I've never been actually checked out that I can think of, let alone starting to remove my stuff.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that happened to you, Jason. I can understand why you wouldn't go back. I would say, based on when you said this occurred, it's been a long enough period of time that I'd give them another try at this point.
You can go back now, right?
Yeah, I mean, anything more than 10 years, I think they get a second chance at that point. We also received a response from Kevin. Kevin said in 2000, wow, we went from somebody that had it 10 years ago to somebody 20 years ago.
This is a 23-year-old story, right? Or
I mean, that tells me that Vegas just must be on the up and up and going perfectly now because nobody has any issues recently.
All these stories are way old, right?
There you go. In 2000, my family went to Vegas. We stayed at Excalibur. We got to our room, pulled the sheets, and 2 moths flew out of the bed.
And that was when Excalibur was new.
Yeah, no. At first, tried to say they would just change the sheets, but eventually they relented and gave us another room.
I don't even know what.
I mean, nowadays, wouldn't surprise me at all. If anything, I would say that's expected and just complimentary. It comes with the room, a couple extra bugs for some protein.
Well, that's what I meant. This was way back when it was virtually new. I mean, I think it opened up in like 90, I'm going to say 95 or so, right?
Amazingly though, Josh, if you go today, you'll have the exact same furniture, bed, everything.
And moths.
Yeah, and the moths come with it still.
Have you ever had any wildlife in your room, Chris?
Wildlife?
I'm going with moths.
Do we consider insects wildlife?
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh, I had a red fox in my room a couple months ago. And
well, he did do shows in Vegas.
Exactly. No, nothing crazy like that. Kevin, I'm sorry. I hope you've gone back to Excalibur in the past 23 years.
I don't know if I hope he's gone back to Excalibur.
Well, that's true. It might not be worth it. Josh, we also got a response from Joyce. Joyce said, many of us have stayed in so many rooms that we could write a book about them and our experience. Isn't that the truth? Sadly, some of my unfortunate experiences include walking into the bathroom at Palazzo to shower to get glass in my feet.
Wow.
I hadn't realized that the prior guest had dropped a glass in the bathroom, and while the bathroom looked clean, the floor had not been mopped. We tried taking what glass we could out of my feet with a handy tweezer from a pocket knife, and I suffered that trip. When I told the desk about it, they said they'd send housekeeping. No offer was made to compensate me. While not a room issue, but a hotel one, while staying at Wynn 2 days after grand opening, I got in an elevator that came to a stop between floors. We were trapped for a short time before they were able to get us out. If you're ever in an elevator with me, it explains my nervousness. Bathroom vanity fell off Vanity and Bellagio while I was brushing my teeth. Nearly broke my foot. I must have bad luck with feet in hotel rooms, it seems.
It seems.
But all is good. We all have our stories and life goes on. I've returned to Bellagio and Wynn. Palazzo handled things so poorly and with great disrespect that she won't return there anymore, Josh.
Wow. Well, those are quite the stories, Joyce. I don't know that I've ever had anything quite like those stories. I had something. I remember one of my last days at Wynn, something wasn't mopped on a bathroom floor. It wasn't horrible enough that it made a big deal out of it, but I remember they'd missed a spot or things. But this glass on the floor is...
Yeah, that's pretty big. I've found plenty of random items on the floor before, corners that they missed and didn't dust something for a while, but I've never actually injured myself in a room because of a lack of cleaning.
No, I haven't either. That's quite the... Eek.
Now, Josh, we had a bunch more, but I think that's a lot. I haven't had any bad stories on my side. I wish I had one to share. The worst things that ever happened to me is I get to my room and there's people in it. And it's usually never even that I see the people in it. It's, you know, you open the door and you see a dirty room with a luggage or something sitting right in front of you.
Right.
But other than that, I've never really had any horrible experiences in Vegas.
No, I think we've been lucky. I also think, Chris, that we are fairly easygoing enough that if there's a smudge somewhere, I mean, you had your eyelashes wherever you were.
That that was at Borgata. Yeah, that was in Atlantic City. Yeah. They came with the towel. That was nice of them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can't think of anything. The funniest story I had, and this is not a housekeeping fail or anything, but as I was thinking about hotel horror stories, this is not Vegas, but my dad was a musician. And so he toured all over the world, playing with his band. And we were in France one time, and it was the Marciac Jazz Festival. And if you know jazz, Dizzy Gillespie was playing there. My dad wasn't at that level, but they had smaller bands and things like that. And there was a brand new hotel. And my dad, a lot of musicians sweat a lot when they're playing. So he had hung his shirt over a wall light to dry.
Okay.
And
that's one way to do it. Yeah.
We're just going about our business. And all of a sudden we see pieces of flaming shirt flying through the air.
Oh, no. Oh, that's a shame.
With a big black spot on the wall from where the shirt had pretty much caught fire and disintegrated.
I don't want to say where it happened or when it happened, but one of my children had a wet shirt at one point when we were staying in a hotel. I think it was Disney at the time.
Right.
And they tried to use a hair dryer to dry it out. And they didn't tell me they were doing that. And they just set the piece of clothing on top of the hair dryer and turned it on. Needless to say, some fire did break out in that. Thank God it was in the bathroom, though, so it was very easy to put it out. And we never talk about that again.
There you go. I haven't told the story with my dad's in a long time either. The only thing I can think of on the very last trip, I think it was the last trip that I took to Wynn, I told you guys about the salon suite that I had. The one thing, and I did get a little bit close to calling. I didn't do it, but I got close to calling and asking for housekeeping to come up because I didn't like the smell in the room. And I'm usually not someone
Yeah.
I'm usually not someone that makes a deal out of that. Even if it's a smoker that I can get a little bit of, somebody been smoking in the room, it's usually fine. But this was, in Wynn's room, you usually have a particularly nice smell, and this was not pleasant. Now, I did find either I got used to it or it went away over the course of the 4 days I was there or something. But I almost called and said, hey, can you at least bring up an ozone machine or whatever they do?
Yeah, well, I remember telling you about a trip I took to Wynn sometime in the last year, Josh, and I walked into the room and it just reeked of pot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it happens even at the best properties.
So thanks you guys for the stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And a call out for next week's episode. What we'd like to talk about next time is a time when a Vegas casino went above and beyond to make your trip extra special. You know, maybe it was an upgraded room, a dinner or show surprise you weren't expecting, just something that made a trip way beyond what you expected in the first place. So shoot us an email. We'll put a post up on our Facebook group about it, or you can message us on Patreon, whatever's easiest for you. But let us know about that special trip and what Vegas did to make it over the top.
Yeah, for sure. And if you have any horror stories, if you didn't see our post asking for feedback on Vegas horror stories and you want to chime in with those, you can shoot us an email or leave it on the Facebook group as well.
Okay, Josh, time for listener questions and comments. We got a message on Facebook from listener Michael. Michael said, I'm doing a golf trip with my buddies in 2 weeks. I hope this message came in the past 2 weeks because we're not good with timely things.
I think we're timely-ish.
Okay, good. One of them really wanted to stay at Circus Circus for nostalgic reasons. Honestly, how bad is it there? Do I need to convince him to stay elsewhere? Also, I'm guessing $15 tables? Thanks. Josh, what are your thoughts on Circus Circus?
Well, I would say that that's probably the only reason one should stay at Circus Circus is for nostalgic reasons.
I agree.
Somebody on the Facebook group said, get nostalgic during the day, but stay somewhere else.
That's a good response. I agree.
And I think that's about right. I mean, Circus Circus, I admit I've taken our daughter to the Adventure Dome, done the Midway games and all that stuff, but I don't have any desire to stay there or even close.
I mean, you can see everybody's reviews and feedback of staying in rooms at Circus Circus. I haven't stayed there in at least 15 years.
Yeah.
It was run down then, and I don't think it's got any better. I mean, they haven't updated. I don't expect rooms to be extremely well kept. It's just, there's nothing that would ever drive me to stay at Circus Circus. You'd be far better staying at even like Excalibur or Luxor.
Oh,
that would be a better option. Just swing by during the day to see it. If you want to go in the evening, go to Circus Circus Steakhouse. Their steakhouse is terrific. They even pump in like the smell of, whatever those,
That's right.
like charcoal and stuff like that. It's a great steakhouse. It comes everything inclusive with a salad and a side. It's reasonably priced for Vegas, has great food. But yeah, after you're done with that, just get out of there. And if you're paying $15 to play at Circus Circus, you're doing something wrong.
Well, I remember when Michael Traeger and I went over there for, I think we'd been at Resorts World. Maybe, I don't know what we were doing, but somehow I was doing our little craps crawl thing or a mini craps crawl, and we decided to go play craps at Circus Circus. They didn't even have a table open. You may not even find a table game that you want to play open. You were asking about $15 tables. They might not even have a live game that you want to play going.
Yeah, and it's the same at places like the Strat, Josh. If you remember correctly, when we went to the Strat recently, in the evening on a weekend, they had one crapless game open, and that was it.
Right.
I mean, it can just be hard at some of these smaller properties or properties that are off the beaten path that don't get as much foot traffic to find the game you're even looking for.
Yeah, thanks for your question, and don't stay at Circus Circus, or I really hope, Michael, that your friend didn't. Let us know if you went to Circus Circus.
Yes, if you do go, then please send us a report of how it went for you. Okay, next, Josh, we got a message from Dan on the Facebook group. Dan had actually posted a meetup time for Coffee Dice at Planet Hollywood in Vegas and met with a couple other listeners of the show, I believe. He wanted to share some comments. He said they had a great session on a crapless table. Jordan was with him and said, unreal 3 days of craps, played something like 20 hours and very rarely had a losing session. Even got my wife and two friends hooked. So playing for two is obviously going to be expensive in the future, but who cares? Had to give multiple talks to our friends that this is in no way normal. Jordan said, thanks for the community you guys provide, and hopefully everyone is having the same amount of luck that we did this weekend. And Jordan, I really hope that Josh and I are having that kind of luck when we're in Vegas this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Dan and Jordan, thank you guys for the comments on the Facebook group. I can't even imagine playing 20 hours and rarely having a losing session.
Josh, that would be like our dream trip. We don't even have to make money. Break even's perfectly fine. But if we could play for 8 or 10 hours a day and not lose money, that would be amazing.
I'll take it. Where do I sign?
Josh, we received an email from listener Michael. Michael said, Chris and Josh, first and foremost, love the show and the content. I'm a fairly consistent craps player at local casinos in Wisconsin. And after listening to the podcast, I've started tipping more, and it's made the experience significantly better. So first off, good job. Great job, Michael. We
Yep, for
love
sure.
you sharing the wealth. I was in Illinois for a Circuit World Series of Poker event this weekend and ended up playing a bunch of crap sessions. I played 3 sessions for about 6 hours total Friday with the same crew, where after an hour or so, they knew my exact bets. Session 1, I lost my buy-in. Session 2, I rolled 4 to the fire and 1.5 times my buy-in. Third session was a minor L, but overall a winning day. Okay, here's where the problem starts coming, Josh. I came back Saturday and played another session with the exact same crew, and they still knew my entire bet structure. First 3 shooters were all brutal, and I was down 3/4 of my buy-in. But on the 4th shooter, he rolled 3 to the fire, which pays 7 to 1 there, and they didn't give me $35, and I claimed I didn't have one. I tried explaining I've been playing the same way for 7+ hours with this crew. They knew my bets. It's always up.
Wow.
They claimed they checked the tapes and refused my $35. I explained to them I thought it was a terrible precedent to set, and out of principle, they should reconsider their decision. I didn't even color up my chips and just left the property. My local casino knows my exact bets there as well, and I can't even count the number of times they book my ATS, even if I forget it. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Once again, appreciate the show and content. I'll be in Vegas in January at Aria and hope to play some coffee dice with us. So thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And you sent this email a while ago, and so I'm glad that we got to it before the January trip.
Yeah, I mean, we're just now getting around to it, but that's pretty normal for us. But Josh, what are your thoughts on this, on bets that dealers allow to drop?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that tipping has made things significantly better. I think that's our experience too, but it's really a shame that happened to you. I mean, the better crews, as we've talked about, whether you're tipping or not, will get a sense for your bets and hopefully give you the benefit of the doubt in those situations, let alone over $35. Just why bother?
Yeah, that's what rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, if this was like a 5-point fire that he had $10 on,
Right.
So we're talking, or or a 6-point fire, and it's gonna be like 10 grand. Then yes, I understand they need to go to the camera, make sure the bet was up and that it's honored correctly. I
Right.
get all that. But if you're talking about a $5 bet that pays $35 for a guy that's been taking care of your dealers and been very consistent in his play, what are you doing?
And if you do go back and check the camera and you can see that he had played it every time leading up to that roll, and this is
Yeah.
the one time that somehow it didn't get out there, again, you're not talking thousands of dollars or anything like that.
No, and at that point, it's not the player's fault. It's the dealer's fault.
Right.
If you're making the same bets every single time and they allow it to fall, that's on them. And I don't let them get away with that sort of thing, Josh. Well, even if we're playing at a property that doesn't know us as well, if I make a $5 crap check on every come out roll, and one time I'm talking to you and forget about it, and of course a 12 comes on the come out, then I'm going to say, look, it's there every time. You know it's there.
Right.
This needs to be paid.
Right.
And 90% of the time, the floor or the base dealer, somebody will throw some money in front of me and make it, make the situation go away. I don't like when dealers let bets drop like that, especially feature bets and stuff. That's a big sign of a bad dealing crew for me.
I agree. And the best part is when you kind of admit that it was your fault and they still pay you. That's a really
Yes.
good place. You say, hey, I forgot my odds that time. Or, it wasn't even something where they didn't book a bet you intended to make. You just plain old, I was talking to Chris or something and I forgot to make a bet, and they'll still give it to me because they know I would have.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how many times, Josh, have they paid odds that we didn't have behind our pass line?
Lots.
100? I
Yeah.
mean, it feels like. And the funny thing is, if we lost, if a 7 would have come, they're not going to ask us to put $100 down.
Right.
They'll just take the pass line and move on. But they try to be good people about it. But yes, this rubs me the wrong way.
Me too. Yeah, I'm sorry that happened for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully we get to see you soon, Michael. Actually, by the time this episode drops, we may have already played with you if you're there.
Yes. We had a terrific time. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Okay, Josh, we also got an email from Andrew. Andrew said, "Hi, guys. I had an experience last week at MGM National Harbor I wondered if you, as bigger players, might have some insight on. But I also realized due to playing so much on credit, this may not happen as much for you." He says, "I had the night at the craps table we all dream about last week. I got to the casino around 9:30 at night and planned to play for about an hour and a half or so before heading home, and ended up playing until 6 o'clock the next morning. In for $800, out for," ready, Josh? $15,000.
I don't think I want to hear the rest of the story. I'm just
I
mad
know.
at
I'm
Andrew.
already mad that I wasn't there.
Exactly.
It was wild. It was a crapless table on which basically nothing could go wrong all night.
Oh.
It started as a $25 table and they raised it to 50 at one point. I still played pretty conservatively. Another guy on the table won at least 150 grand. He won 75 grand on just this listener's roll, Josh.
Wow. I can't even, I mean, Chris and I sometimes talk about if we had a dream roll, how much could we win? And somewhere we joke about, 75,000, 150,000, something like that. I would just love to go in for 800 and out for 15K.
Oh, no, I'd be perfectly fine with that. I mean, Josh, I'm just thinking about it from our perspective. If we bought in for our normal buy-in and had a run from like 800 to 15,000, I know how much that would make us.
Yeah.
But when you're starting to get to those numbers, when a roll's been going on for a while. So for us, when you're getting to the 15, 20 roll mark, and pretty much every number on the table is at 600, 1,000, stuff like that. It doesn't take much to start turning a really good roll into an absolutely massive roll, especially if you're talking about on a crapless table.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we talk about, we recognize that our levels, the level of play we have, we can get killed, but we can also, just the other way, if we get a roll like this, that's our kind of dream.
No, I think that's the difference that everybody always asks about. We get all sorts of emails here asking about our strategy and if we think our strategy is better than other strategies. And I can't remember if it's on this episode or not, Josh, but we got a question recently saying, if you're going to play across, why don't you just play the 5 and then play the field? And, questions like that. It comes up all the time. So there's no loss rolls. Play the 5, 6, 8, and then just play the field with it. The way we play that way because on a really good session, we're going to absolutely kill it. But if there's a really bad session, we're absolutely going to get killed. But I think Josh and I, that's just kind of our personality. We'd rather have the really big hits and deal with the dips than just play a really conservative strategy where we just slowly bleed out.
Yep, that's exactly right. Does Andrew's story get better or worse from here?
Well, let's continue on. He said he tipped me $4,000 after the roll. This guy did, not including the $15,000 that he cashed out for. The whole thing felt like a fever dream. Josh, I've never been tipped more than $25. And I would feel weird if somebody did try to tip me.
So I think I told this story on the show before, but maybe not. I was over at Caesars, and this is a long time ago when I was a baby craps player, and I think it was probably a $10 table or something. I was probably playing 6 and 8 or something, or a 3-point molly. And we had a roll like this, and a guy was playing with the chocolate chips, so $5,000 chips. Mm-hmm. And I was shooting, and I had this massive roll, and he probably won kind of the same example. I think he won $400,000 on my roll. He had a beautiful woman with him, and I was 23 or something, but he threw me a yellow chip. He threw me $1,000, and to me that awesome. Was like,
that's like the best thing in the world at that point.
Yeah, I didn't even know. I was like, why are you giving me this?
what do I do with it? What do I have to do?
I think I won $1,000.
He wanted you to meet him at his room later with his lady. That's what it was.
Sure. I think I won $1,000 on the roll, and he tipped me $1,000 on the roll. So I was awesome. Happy.
Well, here's where his email starts to head the wrong direction, Josh. Anyhow, when I went to cash out, he had $18,000 and he had 36 $500 chips. I guess maybe they didn't have a higher color available. I assume they did because of what the other guy was playing. But anyways, he had 36 $500 chips. He said they literally took everything they had on the table. The guy that won with 100K plus, he had taken all the big colors. So that kind of explains why he was left with what he was left with. But he said, I brought my 36 purples to the cashier window, and it took them over an hour to cash me out. First, they asked for my player's card. Then they called the pit where I've been playing to verify it actually won what I was cashing out. Then they wanted my ID. The cashier typed away at the computer for 20 minutes. He said he also had an $85 Tito ticket, but he doesn't think that was the issue. I agree. That was not your issue.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Eventually, of course, they paid me as I did win it fair and square, but it was such a hassle. And I guess my question is, what if I had refused some of the hassle? What if I didn't want to give them my player's card or my driver's license? I obviously had nothing to hide and wasn't in a hurry, so I went along with it. But I did win the money fair and square. Shouldn't they just swap the chips for cash? What if I had pocketed the chips because I was in a hurry and tried to cash them in the next week? And there was no pit to verify my play from that day. Curious if you guys have any insights. Best, Andrew.
I think that's a great question, Andrew. And as you're saying, and I mean, I've had similar experiences, not exactly at that level, but if you take a $5,000 chip to the cage, a lot of times sometimes even places that are lower denominations, $1,000 chip or a $500 chip, they're going to want your player's card. They're going to want your ID. They may call back to the pit to verify your play. What happens if you don't do those things? I honestly don't know. I assume, I don't know. I'm wondering if they would have any recourse not to cash out the chip. I don't know the legalities of that. Do you have any feel for it, Chris?
Why do I know the answer to this, Josh, but you're the lawyer and you don't know this? Because that doesn't make any sense.
I always just do what they say.
Wow, what a great law-abiding citizen.
That's right.
Yes, sir. Please some more. Okay, so I'm familiar with this much more from my days back when I was a blackjack counter, because there was plenty of times I would have a bunch of lower denomination chips because I wasn't playing on a card, so they wouldn't give me a $1,000 chip. Usually they'd give me a purple at most, and a lot of times it was a lot of black.
Right.
But yes, I would go up to the cage, and I wasn't playing on a player's card, so I wasn't rated in the system. They didn't have my name tracked with these chips that I had wanted. I'd go up and I'd give it to them, and this happens all the time. The cage would be, I need your player's card. I don't have one. Where did you get these? I was playing blackjack. And they go back and forth and make a couple calls, and they would say, oh no, we need your ID to cash this out. That's all BS. Every casino has a policy at what level they request to get your player's card,
right,
and at what level they want to see an ID. Here's the thing. They're not allowed to ask for your ID unless you're taking out $10,000 or more, or if they think that you deposited or withdrawn $10,000 or more in a 24-hour period. In your case, you were cashing out $18,000. By law, they have to have your personal information, including your social security number, which they would have prompted you for, because they have to fill out a report on that. It's called a CTR, a cash transaction report. They have to fill that out when you did anything more than $10,000. If you won't provide it, they literally cannot give you the money. So in this case, they weren't trying to screw you or take your information or anything. They didn't have a choice. They had to get that information from you. But say you walked up there with $7,000, which is above the level that they might require a player's card. They really do want to start getting your ID. You don't have to provide that. Now, they may say they're not going to cash you out, and then you have a choice at that point where you can either call the gaming commission and say you have chips that they're refusing to cash, or you give in to them and say, here's my ID, and they let you go, and they don't understand why you're being a jackass. If you just want it at a craps table, I don't see any reason not to give your driver's license or your social if that's what they need. It's not a big deal. If you're trying to keep yourself anonymous, especially if you're something like a counter, then it's a little bit of a different story, but you have to decide what kind of foot you want to put down, what kind of line in the sand you want to draw.
That's really interesting, Chris. Thank you for educating me as well as Andrew. Like I say, I haven't been in that situation. I think that hopefully we win enough. If we have that $150,000 roll, we can go up and refuse to give them our ID and see what happens.
Now, I will say this just as a little bit of warning. If you walk up with $10,000 or more in chips and put them on the counter and say you want to cash out, and then they ask for your ID and your social, and you refuse to provide it, and then you want to take your chips back and walk away, you're going to get a little bit more than a CTR there. You're going to get a SAR, a suspicious activity report, that does get turned into the Treasury. I wouldn't go down that line because SARs are a heck of a lot more serious than CTRs. CTRs get put in a file and never looked at unless you have some sort of financial crime down the road that they really want to dig into. SARs, I believe they do investigate each one. So if you're somebody that had the chips and then try to pull them back because you didn't want to give your information, that is horribly suspicious, and I would not recommend doing that.
So take the advice from the accountant and not the lawyer here.
And as somebody that used to be in that world where trying to cash chips was difficult.
That's what I was going to say.
I've said I've been there, but definitely don't try to skirt laws. I know a lot of people say, well, just break it up into smaller transactions. Be careful with that, because if you start breaking it up into $2,000 transactions, then you're getting into structuring, which is illegal. And so that could be far worse. Stay away from that world.
So thanks very much, Andrew, for the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Okay, Josh, I think that wraps it up for questions. Patreon. That's patreon.com/crapvegas. We now have the first episode of our Best of 2023 awards now live. And Josh, that was a heck of a lot of fun to record.
Yes, Chris and I are having a great time. We did this back in 2022. We had a Best of Vegas awards, and this is our Best of 2023 Vegas awards. And it is, as Chris said, a lot of fun to record. We're having a great time. Part 1 is out for our patrons now. Part 2 will be released this week. May have even been released already to our patrons by the time this show drops. And Part 3 coming up next week, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It was a lot of fun. For those that listened last year, we have now added sound effects for the countdown. It makes it much more professional, so you'll enjoy that. But a big special thank you to everybody that signed up over the past 2 weeks. That's Howard D, Jerry S, Reese C, 10 Dice 1, which I think is a Tennessee person, and as a Kentucky person, I don't like Tennessee people, but you can still sign up. That's okay.
Could be some sort of D&D player with 10-sided dice.
Yeah, but it's got 2 N's.
All right, fair enough.
Okay. Jordan H, Terry B, Shooter McGavin 11, and Nana. Lots of great names this week. So thank you all for signing up. We do really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. As we always say, the support of our patrons really it means so much to us. And thank you for your support. Thanks for listening to our Patreon shows. Or if you don't even like the Patreon shows and you just want to support us, that's good too.
Yeah, we'll take anything you want to throw at us. Josh, I did want to read one little testimonial that we got from Reese after he joined. He had put a message out that said, I've been a long-time listener, but finally caved and joined Patreon. Anyone sitting on the fence about joining should get on it. The extra content is amazing. I've never rolled dice, I think that's the term, in my life, but Chris and Josh's honest reviews and stories and input about Vegas is what got me hooked. It really is a great podcast and a great community. So thank you, Reese, for that. Really appreciate it.
Yep, thanks so much. And when you mentioned the community, that's something that we really hope that our Facebook group is becoming. It's supposed to be a positive place. We're going to talk about the show. We're going to talk about things that are related to Vegas and travel and gambling. But we do want it to be very much like the show, an uplifting, upbeat kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Upcoming trips, Josh, as we mentioned, when this episode comes out, we will be on the craps tables in Vegas, just absolutely killing it. No losing sessions.
Yep. And we probably will have met Michael, it seems like. And we know we will have played with James, I think.
Yeah.
And Sean is going to come down for the first time in Vegas in 47 years, I think you said, something like that.
Something like that. Oh, he must be your age then, Josh. That's good.
Exactly.
Another boomer to hang out with you.
That's right. So thank you guys for joining us, assuming you did.
Absolutely. And then we are talking about going back the weekend of March 1st through March 3rd, but we haven't figured out where we were going to stay now. Originally, that was going to be an Aria trip. Josh, what are you thinking right now? I'm bouncing back and forth with different ideas. I thought it could be a potential win trip for the first win trip of the year. I thought maybe I could just drag you over to Venetian or Palazzo and let you experience that with me.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend a little bit on how this Aria trip goes. This is our first trip back, as we said, to Aria in a while, so a little bit will depend on that. I think we're already feeling a little homesick for Wynn, so Wynn could pull us back. Or as Chris said, I could easily see us making this a Venetian Palazzo trip, or who knows, maybe I can talk Chris and do a Fontainebleau trip.
Probably not.
They need bodies,
Okay.
Chris. They need bodies.
Josh, I don't even know if they'll still be open by the time this comes out at the rate they're going. How many more executives left do they have?
Yeah.
Have they fired them all yet?
If you're not up on the Vegas news, and again, we don't go too deep into that, but Fontainebleau has lost 3 top-level executives in the month since they've opened. So I don't
completely
think
normal.
That's a good sign.
Nothing to
right?
see here. No,
Right.
Everything's great. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Friendly reminder to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app and to visit our merch store, crapvegas.com/shop. Anybody that listened to our last episode and happened to pay attention to some of Josh's notes at the end heard a web link that might have got you a discount on some stuff. I think it's still up and running, although I can't promise anything. So you might want to think back on that one. Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here, though, Josh?
Well, you should know if it's up and running. You run the website.
I do? Oh, yeah, I guess I do. Sure. Let's say yes, it is, Josh. But let's say that promo code's still good for another week, and I will go fix it if it's not.
There we go. So, Chris, I have what have become my usual since the last show, a rundown of some conferences or conventions that are coming up to Vegas.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
Well, I don't think there's anything quite as much fun as last time, but well, it depends on your point of view. The AVN Awards are at Resorts World on the 24th through 27th. Yeah.
Have you ever gone to that, Josh?
I have not gone to that.
Okay.
Would you go?
I mean, like, I have no interest in going to like the actual like conference or anything, or like, I don't know if they're taking signups for participants or anything. Like, I have mental images of what it would be like to play at a craps table with some of these people. And I'm sure it's not really as bad as I'm thinking. I'm sure they're just normal people that happen to do this for a living, but it sounds fun in my head.
Yeah, I think it would be, I would actually maybe like to go just to see just for the spectacle of it. I think that would be fun.
Okay.
You have also the World of Concrete, which is a huge show, I think, at the convention center.
I've heard about that many times, and I know it is an absolutely massive show. I don't understand why. I mean, how many things about concrete could we really talk about? But it seems to do great for the city.
So, yeah, there doesn't seem to be that much that you could talk about with concrete, as you said. But, yeah, it's a big thing. It's a big, huge convention. I also wanted to mention, that's all I've got for exciting. There's a few others, but there's nothing real exciting. There's a fancy food show, which, we could go with that.
Oh, you love your food.
But I did want to say congratulations to Mark and Dr. Mike of You Can Bet on That for their 300th show. 300 shows is a big achievement, so I'm glad you guys made it.
Yeah, congratulations on that. There's, golly, Josh, how many years do we have to do this to get to 300?
Pretty sure you'll die of old age by then.
Yeah, that's a good chance of that. And for those that haven't listened yet, I highly recommend you check out their new episode because it's just slightly different than usual to celebrate their 300 show.
And the last thing I wanted to say is when this episode drops, one of our patrons and friends of the show, Marilyn, will be celebrating her birthday gambling in Atlantic City with some of our other friends of the show. And I just want to say happy birthday to Marilyn.
Yes, happy birthday to you, Marilyn. We hope you have a great time.
That's what I got.
Okay. Well, Josh, if there's nothing else, I thank you all for listening and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Vegas, here we come.
Thanks for listening to the Crap Vegas podcast.
Have you ever been to Vegas?
Check out all our recent news and our Vegas trip calendar by visiting crapvegas.com.
See you in Vegas.
Take 47.
Okay, let's tell people how to get in touch with us. The easiest way. No, why am I jumping down there? What the fuck am I doing? We're just starting. Come on, Chris. Many free attractions like the fountains, conservatories, etc. Great comment. Perfect. Yep.
I wasn't waiting to be. All right, hold on. I wasn't waiting to. I wasn't expecting to weigh in on each. I thought you were going to go through the list, kind of thing. Let's see. Hold on. Give me the lead in again. Many free attractions.
Sure. Why not?
No errors. We're going to have a whole show where there's no errors.
Yeah, exactly.